You know, the words we use, speaking of words, they matter a lot. For example, when it comes to assault, the person being assaulted at the time it's happening is a victim of a crime. Afterwards, they're a survivor. And the language used to legislate said crimes also matters. There's a bill waiting to be dealt with in Governor Little's office, House Bill 341. It would change the language in Idaho's law prohibiting prostitution, and it would give police the tools to actually convict sex traffickers. But not everyone is sold on this bill, because changing the language may not change the result. The victims of sex trafficking, those currently being abused, won't get the help they need, they say. Here's Andrew Bartline.
It's not a crime you typically see because it often happens in silence.
I've lived in Idaho for a very long time, and this has been going on since I was 14 years old.
Survivors of human trafficking, they're your neighbors or even the people you pass on the street.
We've been through war, and there's more of us out there that need that help.
Help that's not granted by the current state law.
Because we're all prostitutes, that's what they say. All these women go to jail for them.
It's a problem well known to Nampa Police Detective Chad Benson.
Up until recently, numbers haven't been tracked very well, but we've seen an increase in the amount of victims coming in and reporting that they've been a victim of this kind of sex trafficking.
Benson says human trafficking runs in tandem with other crimes, including prostitution. But the actual criminals behind these crimes, the human traffickers themselves, they aren't held accountable.
In Idaho, there have been no prosecutions for human sex trafficking in the past 5 years. I think that speaks volumes.
Detective Benson says that's partially due to the language in state law.
Prostitution and human trafficking are two different things. One is voluntary, one is not.
House Bill 341 aims to amend that language by removing the word prostitute from the code to now read, quote, receive or accept proceeds for illegal sexual activity.
Now, with that removed, we can identify them as a victim and take immediate action. Law enforcement side, which does several things. Up until now, it has been difficult to give the victim a voice in these cases.
That is, if they get a voice at all.
Us survivors need more support from the community.
The Idaho Anti-Trafficking Coalition is that support for many survivors.
Even if they've reworded it.
And the director,
they're only rewording a section,
April Zielinski,
of a 40-something page statute.
Doesn't support this bill. She says the bill focuses on the prostitute statute specifically and does not amend the state's trafficking laws.
What they're saying to Idaho is that there is only one act in human trafficking, and it's through the act of prostitution. It's not true.
Zielinski is concerned the bill may change the language, but not change outcomes.
If they wanted to redefine it and call it something else, then they should be doing it in a completely different bill.
But everyone involved wants the same thing.
I didn't know about the law, so I just thought they didn't care.
To hold the real criminals accountable and to make victims survivors.
It's very hard to live with your traffickers on the streets or around you, so it would be amazing to have them locked up and us be heard.
The real idea of this legislation or any other legislation that was really proposed by that coalition against it, or what their idea would be instead, is to really target the people who really are the victims of this crime and get them the help they need, get them out of this situation, and likewise target the people who are the actual criminals who are trafficking these people. And the problem, Brian, it's really interesting how they both want to be at the same conclusion. They both want the same thing, but the coalition is concerned that just changing that language around prostitute isn't going to actually change anything for people that are currently victims. It might create a more narrowly tailored definition to actually prosecute and convict the people who are trafficking, but the actual victims, it might not actually help them. That's the concern of the coalition. Okay. In the event that they'd be correct, there is a clause at the end of the bill, if it is signed into law, that essentially says the Attorney General and the Idaho Criminal Justice Commission have to create a report at the end of the calendar year. That would be in 2024, the beginning of 2024. Okay. Kind of understand what those problems are and where they didn't quite hit the mark.
I kind of want to touch on some of the voices we heard in that story you just had. When we talk about victims versus survivors, you kind of were just surprised with a whole table full of survivors today.
Yeah, when we talked with Detective Benson today, he asked me, do you want to talk to anybody who's actually gone through this, who's been a victim and now become a survivor? And yes, of course. That's how we learn things. That's
Yeah.
how we understand what's going on. And I walked into a room with 20 people who are survivors of this today, who are comfortable talking to me about what happened to them. And there are things that, as a reporter, you want to be talented and show people what's going on and what you learned today. There just was not enough time.
True.
There was not enough to really portray what we heard today. I mean, Ryan, it was one of the more difficult conversations I've been a part of in my life. And for these people to share that, it was really powerful today.
They feel like this is something that's going to help?
They liked it. Of course, they're not legal experts,
Right.
but they like that there is an effort at the State House that is going to prosecute and convict the people who've harmed them. And for them, it seems that that's a great step toward closure.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Andrew. Really appreciate it.